the Trump effect has been a real thing, right? Like we've seen massive adoption. We've seen a geopolitical kind of shift, almost like a 180-degree turn from the US, which is obviously one of the largest markets.
One thing crypto does really well is when we do start to see Ethereum get frothy, Bitcoin get frothy, it does amazing advertising for the space and brings a whole manner of people in.
I'm feeling super bullish on many of those assets that have that direct user exposure, have already got their ETFs over the line. Ethereum is no different.
Hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of the Tapping Into Crypto podcast. And with us, he's back.
I'm back.
Tommy.
I've made it a reappearance. I came out from under my rock. It was all the noise.
It's a bloody big rock.
Yeah, it's all the green days, the green mornings.
Yeah, that'll do it. It's a bit hard to sleep with all the green.
It is indeed. But good to be back, mate. Good to see you.
Yeah, I don't think we've done an app. I know you did one recently with Ted, like about 6 weeks ago.
Yeah, you went MIA for a few weeks and I had to step in, but that's all right.
It's good. It's good timing, I feel.
The ratings didn't dip too much when I was on. Ted taught me anyway, but he doesn't like to hurt my feelings, so, we'll see.
We'll hurt him right back.
The numbers don't lie.
You tell me if you hits you again. Mate, we've got you here for a reason. You know, it's been a lot of, like you said, green happening in the markets.
Yep.
A lot of people maybe just coming back into crypto, being interested, seeing their portfolios move from, that orange hue to more of that green that we're talking about. So we'll chat about a lot of things, but I feel like this is a great opportunity just to maybe throw out a bit of cautionary optimism. I know you've got some great insights around the ETH staking pools that we'll dive into as well a little bit later. I think overall the theme that we were both talking about before the show was like Project America, like crypto for America. Like America is doubling down on crypto. There's a lot of things that maybe people aren't putting the pieces together. So I thought it'd be good to just us give our thoughts on what we're seeing and how that's relevant to the market right now. But yeah, like it seems like there's no chance of really any breaks being hit right now. Like every headline you hear from even Donald Trump again, and like his team just seems to be like one more, route of advocacy, and the market's moving in ways that we never thought we'd see so quickly, right? Like I think if you speak to anyone who's been in the space for long enough to see the adoption that we're seeing, it's just milestone after milestone after milestone.
It's an exciting time. I think in this industry, we're kind of always waiting for something to come around the corner and bite us in the ass. It has many times.
Can't be this easy. Yeah,
that's right. Jesus, it's not easy. But
it's not easy. No.
But I think the Trump effect has been a real thing, right? Like we've seen massive adoption. We've seen a geopolitical kind of shift, almost like a 180-degree turn from the US, which is obviously one of the largest markets. Yep. Trump's kind of put his money where his mouth is a little bit with respect to crypto. Yep. We thought maybe at the time it was a play for votes. You know, they want to get in. There was a pretty loud minority, you could call it, I guess, and there was a perception at the time when the elections were happening that a part of his play on crypto actually helped him get it over the line and get reelected. A lot of opinions on that, whether it's true or not, but I think what he has done is he's doubled down. He's kind of, like I said, he's put his money where his mouth is with respect to backing crypto, signing the laws and bills, and really, I guess driving the momentum behind it. You know, you could question his motivations to a degree. He's got a couple of businesses spun up around digital assets now as well, and he's got his son
very
running
much
it.
Involved.
Yeah. So there's potentially an ulterior motive there. It is Donald Trump at the end of the day.
But would you fade that?
You wouldn't. I mean, sitting in our seats, probably not, right? We're happy with it. We're seeing some upside. We're seeing some bullish momentum. It hasn't been up and to the right, but it's been more up and to the right than the opposite, right? So we've seen some retraces. We've seen some sideways, boring action in the market since he's been reelected. Yep. Right now, it kind of feels like we're in this moment again where, for me, I feel like we're in a moment where we could leg up again to the right, and that's where I'm at. Like, it's that cautious optimism. It's kind of my most beaten phrase, but it does feel like that at the moment, and I feel like we are in a relatively good spot with, we've seen Bitcoin hitting an all-time high, and we'll talk about ETH again in a little bit, probably, Pav, but for me, I'm feeling really good about where the markets are at right now.
Well, let's start with that. I think that's a good place to start, just the idea of because I feel kind of the same. Like, I want to see a little bit more in terms of market structure. Bitcoin again, just ever so shy of fresh all-time highs again. Sort of what have you seen in the last couple of weeks that you think is driving a lot of this, what we're seeing? I think specifically we can't not talk about, some of the more recent developments that Donald Trump's sort of brought to the team.
Yeah, I think the biggest one for me that just came out is, you mentioned at the start, the Project Crypto initiative. The the 40 trillion available in 401ks, like 401ks, like your superannuation in US, can't be understated. Like 10% of that gets us a doubled crypto market in terms of market cap, right? We're at about 4 trillion at the moment. 10% of that is 10% optimistic. I don't really know what the right number is right now, but any number is positive, right? Like,
well, that's it. Like, even if it is a steady climb and an accumulation from some of these funds that service the 401ks, I mean, that's
exactly right. And you've seen some of the biggest ETF providers in the US, like the BlackRocks, come out. They've got all these products now that you can access with direct exposure to crypto. So I think it's a really exciting time. I think that pool of liquidity, you know, like I said, if you got 10% of it, it doubles your market, right? Some would argue it's too high. Many others would argue that it's not enough, right? When you're talking about an investment or an asset class that has such potential and has proven to have such upside, you know, not on every asset, but in many of the assets. We mentioned Ethereum, about 12 to 13% away from an all-time high at the moment for, you know, after 4 years. So, you know, getting back in the spotlight. These are the assets that a lot of these kind of quote unquote like more conservative investors would just look to. I want to have some exposure to those assets. So I think that's one of the main ones I've seen that's driving some of the executive orders being signed. I can't remember the name of the project that the SEC were running that was basically stopping the banks from allowing funds into crypto. I won't talk about Australia and how that plays out for one to getting in trouble, but I guess that whole sentiment is changing now. An executive order essentially like mandating or prescribing the banks not to block particular businesses, crypto businesses, people trying to take in money to drive the market. So really exciting times, a lot of bullish tailwinds there, I would say, with respect to the US specifically. And yeah, to be fair to Trump, you know, a lot of people are not his fan, but he has put his money where his mouth is with respect to committing to driving the industry forward, and it's playing out right now.
Well, we're seeing the market respond, right? Like they're just, again, like as much as he's doubling down, I think even just seeing some of the, you know, corporates, I know we spoke about that a few weeks ago, but just wanted to like double click on that and just make sure everyone's aware. Like even, you know, we're talking about superannuation funds moving into crypto. Yes, that's a large sum of money, but we're also seeing like broader growth across even the equities markets in the US turning to crypto to generate that additional yield, which is idle funds. So it's ETH. That's basically what they're chasing, right? So we've seen this in ETF movements, again, like the exchange-traded funds in the US. I think Ethereum alone in the last, since June, it's 80% of its flows have just been most recently in terms of the buying activity.
Yeah, and I've seen just this week, it's actually, I think for the first time since the ETF's launch, it's overtaken Bitcoin in terms of daily flows for a couple of consecutive days, which is...
That's pretty telling.
It's big. Yeah. Considering all the early interest we got into Bitcoin, you know, Bitcoin is still the king. But yeah, interesting to see how that plays out. And then in future, you know, we've talked about the next ETFs for quite a while, but what's the next asset that starts to get its name in the limelight? I have an interesting story I was reading about just, I can't remember where it was, but I was reading about like when retail come in, I think it was Rawl Paul that was talking about actually, when retail come in and they look at CoinGecko or CoinMarketCap, right? They look at Bitcoin and they go, oh, this is a fortune, I can't afford it, right? Even though you can buy $10 or $100. It's like the unit bias, exactly. Ethereum is now $4,000 US. What's the next one? And this is kind of the argument for XRP and some of the other ones that come down to, you know, like they were talking about Doge, Solana even potentially feels a bit expensive for some people. So it's just that whole kind of, unit economics, as you said, Pav. Like I can get 1,000 XRP for X amount of dollars, whereas with Bitcoin I can't, you know, I'm not going to get a full Bitcoin. It's quite unachievable for a lot of people today in reality. And even Ethereum is, you know, that next step up again. So plays into institutions to a degree, but I guess when you talk about equities markets, retail can access that. They have a similar thought potentially around the unit economics of Ethereum, Bitcoin with respect to equities, products, and that exposure that they want to get. So,
and that's a nice little segue because we did see some changes from the SEC and XRP or Ripple. Do you want to touch on that a little bit?
It's a bit of a long running story, and I speak to this. We know we've got a lot of XRP holders and XRP fans that listen to the podcast that are on SwiftX as well. And I think the story here really is their 4-year case that's been hanging over XRP Ripple Labs for Yeah, over 4 years actually, has finally been put to bed. There was some appeals from the SEC. There's some counter appeals from XRP or Ripple.
Yep.
And the message here is essentially it's been put to bed. XRP was in that ruling deemed not to be a security and its public offerings on exchanges. So big news for XRP holders. It's another bit of bullish momentum to put behind it. We talked about unit economics. We talk about the sentiment of the lower price token, which is really what we're getting at. Doge was even in that conversation now, thinking back at it. But yeah, I think it's a big milestone for Ripple in general. They've recently came out, and not so recently now, I guess, they came out with their own stablecoin.
Yep.
Some good momentum behind the vision and drive behind why they actually were spun up in the first place or why their company exists.
Well, I think to give them some credit, like a lot of people, you could say like, yeah, I've got these ultra bullish XRP people out there, but they've been like one of the projects that I think have articulated clearly what are they trying to fix in crypto for a long time.
Yep.
Yes, they've had a lot of headwinds against them.
Yep.
You could argue maybe there's some fundamentals and, tokenization, tokenomics that, aren't that favorable to the investor. But at the end of the day, they're going to get to this point where they can deliver, get some momentum,
That's
like
right.
you said, become that payments rail network that they wanted to always be, if not interbanking solution.
Yeah.
I mean, it's easy to see why people see that as a problem right now because everyone's experienced it, right? And they're just coming out as like, this is what they're fixing.
Anyone that's ever used an overseas remittance provider like a Western Union or, one of these types of companies has copped large fees. Like it's the replacement, that their vision was the replacement for the SWIFT system.
Yeah.
I think they're very well positioned to potentially, start to do that now. We've already seen stablecoin adoption. I think the big missing piece for me with Ripple, and I don't want to focus too much more on Ripple, but the stablecoin for me was always the missing piece for them. I think they identified that midway through their journey. I don't know why they didn't identify it earlier, to be honest, because it was always going to be for me the missing piece, especially as stablecoins become more widely adopted and the use cases became clear. They've got that now. They've got clear, regulatory clarity now. So yeah, it's definitely an exciting and interesting one to watch. I think how that plays out over the next couple of years.
Yeah, okay. I want to take it back to Ethereum for a little bit because I think we kind of both are probably on the similar page on this one. Do you sort of see where Ethereum sits right now, being so close to all-time highs? Like, what does that mean for you in the short term, and then maybe looking forward to the next 6 to 12 months? Like, how are you sort of envisioning, some of these tailwinds that we're seeing?
Yeah.
What are you thinking about that in terms of what the market could do?
Yeah, look, for a risk of being overly bullish sitting on the chair here today talking, I mean, I am generally, I think, trying to bring a balanced and conservative view into it. At the moment, I'm feeling super bullish on many of those assets that have that, direct use exposure, have already got their ETFs over the line. Ethereum is no different. I mentioned, we're about 13%-ish away from an all-time high. It's first time in 4 years we've even got close. Ethereum was kind of treated as the red-headed stepchild of the recent bull run that we went through, or over the last kind of call it 2 years now. Ethereum didn't move, right? It was flat line for most of it. Realistically, we've only started to see it move in the last 6 months. So yeah, people are getting excited. One data point I've been watching is Ethereum staking queues. So if you've got Ethereum staked as an institution, there's essentially a period of time you have to wait to reclaim your tokens that are staked on chain. It was sitting like a couple of months ago. It was sitting at 2 to 3 days, and that's jumped out now about 10x from where it was.
Jeez, okay.
Yeah.
So just to clarify, this means that anyone who's in this queue can't sell their Ethereum.
Yeah,
right?
They're waiting to get it redeemed back to a wallet, so they can then it's a liquid asset for them to stake, or so for them to do something with, sell, trade, swap, whatever they want to do. So that's an interesting data point. It kind of, I guess, the message in that for me, and again, this is just my own perception on it at the moment, is people are potentially getting ready for a break of all-time high. Maybe they want to take some profits at that time. Never a bad idea to take profits at an all-time high when you can. So I think people have been waiting 4+ years to get this opportunity, and I feel like it's maybe starting to present itself now for some people.
I kind of like that too because it lines up with a lot of the seasonal data that we've spoken about in the past too on the potty, and it doesn't play out every time, but even if it plays out 60% of the time, it's enough to warrant some attention. September never been a great month for crypto. So, I mean, if we're teeing up the situation where we could see some bit more euphoria take off in the market, I mean, I'm personally going to be looking at that as an option, sell down, right? Because you can always buy back again.
Yeah, I think we've been pretty aligned from the podcast episodes I've done with yourself and Ted over the last even 12 months.
Yeah.
Like the timeline is kind of lining up a bit too perfectly for us right now. We said we were going to have like choppy-ish to start 2025, maybe bullish before Christmas, which we've seen. A lot of the Trump euphoria was around that time.
It was.
Then we saw that kind of cool off into
mid-December.
It started to cool off and got boring for about 6 months.
Yep.
And then in the last, call it, couple of months or less, we've started to see that build up again.
Yep.
Starting to play out kind of as we had predicted, which is good. I'm still playing the pre-Christmas cool-off type of card at the moment. Despite the tailwinds, I'm still kind of thinking, personally, with my own personal investments, I am thinking that I'd be gearing up for a bit of a sell down into Christmas and then re-looking at it kind of mid-January when people start to get back into things again. That's kind of personally how I'm thinking about playing it.
Yep.
The market might change that, but as of right now, I think it's lining up pretty in line with what we had expected, to be honest. Yeah.
I like that too, because I think the sad reality is, like, one thing crypto does really well is when we do start to see Ethereum get frothy, Bitcoin get frothy, does amazing advertising for the space and brings a whole manner of people in.
Yeah.
But that also is the catalyst.
Your top buyers.
The top buyers, right?
Top buyers, yeah.
Awesome catalyst for the people that have bought months ago to finally take that percentage profit, right? So I think, it's not, it's important to understate that. Don't think the cycle's over. I think we're at the point where things start moving a bit quicker than what people expect, but at the same time, you never go broke taking profits, I think.
No, what do you think about the altcoins? I know a lot of people are asking, I'm assuming you guys have covered it a fair bit in the last few weeks on the podcast, but there was a bit of a mini fake out breakout by altcoins a couple of weeks ago.
There was, yeah.
I was starting to think, okay, are we going to see that Bitcoin dominance percentage drop down?
Yeah.
Ethereum and some of the altcoins start to get their day in the sun, because a lot of them are still well down. I was looking at Polkadot earlier this morning. It's 96.5% down from its all-time high.
Yep.
Just to use an example, like there's a lot of those quote unquote, like, not blue chip, but the next level down layer ones that just have not had their rise. Sol and Sui have had a little bit of a run recently, but what are your thoughts on kind of that space at the moment? Do you think we're going to see it, or is it kind of next steps?
I think, just fundamentally speaking, if we get to a point where no one expects it, I think expect it. But we're still at that point now where we know from the data we are seeing rotational plays. So you'll see market run, let's say Solana runs, I think it's almost within 1 to 2 weeks. Sui has a bit of a run. And then we're seeing just categorically meme coins are constantly outperforming the market, right? So it's just the market's got this muscle memory of, okay, if this goes, this is the rotation to look for, etc. You're not seeing that broader based whole market moving sort of movement like you're talking about, like your Polkadots and even a lot of, like, let's just call it mid-tier assets are just range bound, for lack of a better word. It's still a range bound where you can be down 30% if the market moves.
Yeah.
Look, I think if you look at the data, like, there's some good ways to measure what is happening in the altcoin space. So you've got on TradingView is a ticker called Others, basically looks and tracks the market cap of anything outside the top 10. It's in a holding pattern. It's at resistance.
Yep.
I think a lot of that isn't going to change until ETH's at new all-time highs. Because again, it's just going to bring people to be rotational, take profits from ETH, roll them into something more speculative. Like, that's what we've seen the market do. Bitcoin's a great example. Moved to 120K, 119K, instantly saw some selling, and now we've seen ETH start to move too. I don't think that's by accident, right? So the best way I could sort of say, to think about it is, it's just a curve, right? Like, people will over time take more risk as the market's moving more in their favor. So, I don't know. I still think it's going to be what we've seen until it isn't. So meme coins being outperforming. I think you'll see certain altcoins continue to show a lot of strength, and you just got to follow that strength. So I think Hype is one of them. Hyperliquid's it's been doing really well. So you just got to keep a track on that. I think Sui's like the other one you mentioned as well. What's your take?
Relatively aligned with what you're saying. I think when you mentioned Hyperliquid, that's, I think, is a decentralized purpose platform or futures platform. Essentially, I think they were seeing massive volumes early, and then it went out. Kind of started to diminish. I think when you look at the market where it's at now, I think you probably see those products start to pump again. You see people start to come in. People are going to be taking those bets on both sides. I think it's probably pretty balanced from what I've seen right now. It's really hard to tell. I guess there's a part of me that still holds out some hope that we see a 2017 type blow off top into Christmas. Me and you have been fantasizing about this.
Like 2017
blow off top. We keep talking about mate, it hasn't come now for nearly 10 years. What are you guys talking about? But
still waiting.
But it is. It kind of feels like we could be gearing up for something like that, where you do see a bit of euphoria, a bit of craziness in the market. I would be very, very cautious at that time, and it'd be watching it on the daily almost at that stage to see,
for sure.
Especially when you talk about some of those coins that are just down bad.
That's it.
How are you gonna start to rescue some of those positions if you have them? I think that's just something that people need to be aware of and
have
being
a plan.
considered of. Yeah.
No, I agree.
Absolutely.
And that's it, because once it does start going, I mean, if you haven't been through it, it moves really quick, and there's no gentleman's exit. Like, you either got out or you didn't, I think is what I remember. And there's only so many times you do that before you stop doing it.
I like that terminology, gentleman's exit. It's fantastic. It absolutely doesn't count in the world of investing ever, but it's like, the red carpet laid out doesn't come.
Exist.
Yeah, but I think I was talking to somebody internally actually last week, and they were talking about they're just going to hit a cliff point in time and then sell everything. And I was like, well, that's one strategy, but another strategy is layering out, right? Like layering in, layering out. Like we talked till the cows come home about the dollar cost average strategy. It works both directions. Yeah. So that's kind of definitely one for me. Like, even when I talk about taking a lot of risk off the table around, into the Christmas period, depending on where the market's at, it's not 100% of my positions, right? It's, it's a 60, 70 potentially, depending on what the asset is.
Yep.
But it's not 100% because you want to kind of hedge on both sides.
Absolutely.
And that's kind of,
because that is a scary bit when you get to these points where it could go higher, it could go lower, when everything's compressing after just months and months and months of, like we've seen, there's been a lot that's happened in 2025.
Yeah.
You'd be absolutely kicking yourself if you spent all that time getting into your position and obviously just dropping the bag like far too early too. Yeah. But I like what you said, because you don't have to complicate these things. Like, just even marrying up dollar cost averaging out with something like fear and greed. Yeah, everyone's got access to that. You get a very quick, good understanding of when the market's getting greedy. You don't have to completely go all out too. So like, there's ways to just be real simple about it.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's it's an interesting strategy, the dollar cost average, especially on assets. I think about people that might have bought Ethereum when it was over $4,000 back in November 2021. The types of activities that they would have, the emotional roller coaster if you're still sitting on those bags and holding them now, like you're getting back to a point where I'm breaking even again, or I've broken even.
Fixed. Yeah,
absolutely. You'd hope that those people did commit to it, or some of them did commit to it and bring down that average cost. Because we've seen Ethereum go right back to under $500 in that period of time, right?
Yep.
Back now up to over $4,000. So you'd like to think people bought at 500 and also bought at 4,000 and had that kind of median average price, and they're in a good position now. So,
and that's a nice thing too
to watch.
We're talking about what the market was like back then as well. Like, we're seeing NFTs make that bit of resurgence now as well, which is something that we were hoping to see. I think that's another check mark that the market's getting more comfortable to come back into risk mode. So I think that'll be a good trend to watch as well. Heading into the next couple of weeks.
I was looking for the number when I talked about 401ks earlier. I was looking for the number of how many potential people, and it's 90 million people that it opens up opportunity to the 401k in the US. So absolutely massive in terms of those numbers. And
surely just think about the rest of the world looking at that happen too. They're going to follow. Like, everyone's
that's what we're hoping. That's what we're hoping.
Follower.
We've been talking about it for a while, loving to be able to get some spot crypto exposure into like self-managed super funds, which we can do now, and then industry funds. That's a huge opportunity in the Australian space when you think about our listeners.
Well, you think about it, the consumer is still in Australia has a choice of what industry super fund they choose, right? So if it's not attractive enough to the modern day investor, which, millennials and whatnot, they're very much Gen Z loves crypto.
Exactly
or
right.
very accepting of it as a future store of value. So, I mean, at some point, everyone's going to be pushed in this hole whether they like it or not. So
strap in. It's all happening. I think we're like I mentioned at the start, we're in a really exciting time now. I think it is a time to be alert, time to be watching your push notifications and reading your news, and I think that push up to Christmas is going to be a really important stage, I think, for people. Hopefully it keeps going, keeps lasting, and the Christmas dinner table conversation is super exciting this year, because
best Christmas yet.
We went through a couple of lean ones in the past, but it's gearing up nicely. I think we're in a good spot.
Just to finish up, I asked Greeny, who was on the show last week, does he give this idea of a super cycle any merit? What's your thoughts on that?
Haven't thought enough about it. I think it's kind of a trending term that gets thrown around from time to time. Like there's a rainbow model and there's stock to flow model. Like there's a lot of different models that kind of they match up for a week out of 5 years, and then people go, oh yeah, we're back in this model.
Pretty much,
X
right?
person from 2011 was right.
Yep.
So I kind of don't necessarily prescribe to those. I think we just play the hand that we're dealt at a given time. The charts don't lie. The market sentiment's super important here. Fear and greed. These types of indicators are probably ones I would hold a bit higher up the hierarchy in terms of making decisions myself with respect to positions. But look, I definitely don't discount anything. But probably a bit more proof and validation for me to see.
Yeah, I'd like to see it before having it. Yeah, we can all have opinions.
Yeah,
but
I wouldn't be opposed to it, right?
No, wouldn't complain too much.
Absolutely. If I'm as bullish next week, might have to pinch me because
I'll have to tie you down a bit.
Very rarely happens 2 weeks in a row. But
that's true, actually.
It's been good, mate. And we'll see you next week.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. Thanks, guys.